And the goal with this is that it will help us with our final project. So, sorry, my husband just texted me asking me if I wanted tacos. So I had to tell him yes, because I want tacos. I'm sorry. So, yes, I'm gonna get some tacos here soon, I guess. Yes, Dantes, you can have some. You know I'm in Aurora, so just pop on over. All right, so let's get going. Quick question for you guys, and you can answer in the Pear Deck. Have you ever heard the words the Electoral College? Have you ever heard about that? I'm not asking if you know what it means. I'm just saying, have you ever heard about the Electoral College? Or heard those words said? Okay, I have 10 of 17 responding. I'm waiting on 5 more people now, only 5 more people. All right, so we're pretty half and half. Half of us said yes, we've heard this, and half of us said no, we haven't. Next question for you. Do you know what the Electoral College does? Looking for 7 more people to give a response. And I'm looking at about 4 more people I'm waiting on. All right, so this is a much bigger difference. Oops, showed the wrong one. Only 2 of us know what the Electoral College is, but the most of us don't. 3 of us know. Samara, can you tell us what the Electoral College is? Or what it does?
I don't know like why it's a college, but I mean why it's called a college.
Yeah.
They elect the president and the vice president.
Okay, yeah, for sure, for sure. Angela, do you have anything else to add?
So like I know that like the electoral college was like kind of used to like separate the power equally among populations to not like give lower population states too much power because it'd be unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the other 13 of you, we are going to get smarter together about what the Electoral College is. And then we're going to move into my demo, and my demo is going to be around the Electoral College. So we are getting smarter about what is the Electoral College, what does it do, and how does it impact me, okay? So keep in mind, we're focusing on how this impacts us. And then we're gonna watch a video, and then we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna go ahead and mute myself and close my screen, and then we will watch this video.
Colorado homeowners, all the electric companies like Xcel are raising their rates, but pay it again, plus you'll get
Most people have heard of the Electoral College during presidential election years. But what exactly is the Electoral College? Simply said, it is a group of people appointed by each state who formally elect the president and vice president of the United States. To understand how this process began and how it continues today, we can look at the Constitution of the United States. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. It specifies how many electors each state is entitled to have. Since 1964, there have been 538 electors in each presidential election. How do they decide on the number 538? Well, the number of electors is equal to the total voting membership of the United States Congress, 435 representatives plus 100 senators and 3 electors from the District of Columbia. Essentially, the Democratic candidate and Republican candidate are each trying to add up the electors in every state so that they surpass 270 electoral votes, or just over half of 538 votes, and win the presidency. So how do states even get electoral votes? Each state receives a particular number of electors based on population size. The census is conducted every 10 years, so every time the census happens, states might gain or lose a few electoral votes. Let's say you're a voter in California, a state with 55 electoral votes. If your candidate wins in California, they get all 55 of the state's electoral votes. If your candidate loses, they get none. This is why many presidential candidates want to win states like Texas, Florida, and New York. If you currently add up the electoral votes of those 3 states, you would have 96 electoral votes. Even if a candidate won North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, and West Virginia, they would only gain 31 electoral votes total from those 8 states. Here's where it can get a little tricky. On a rare occasion, like in the year 2000, someone can win the popular vote but fail to gain 270 electoral votes. This means that the winner may have won and collected their electoral votes by small margins, winning just enough states with just enough electoral votes, but the losing candidate may have captured large voter margins in the remaining states. If this is the case, the very large margins secured by the losing candidate in the other states would add up to over 50% of the ballots cast nationally. Therefore, the losing candidate may have gained more than 50% of the ballots cast by voters, but failed to gain 270 of the electoral votes. Some critics of the Electoral College argue the system gives an unfair advantage to states with large numbers of electoral votes. Think of it this way. It is possible for a candidate to not get a single person's vote, not one vote, in 39 states or the District of Columbia, yet be elected president by winning the popular vote in just 11 of these 12 states: California, New York, Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Georgia, or Virginia. This is why both parties pay attention to these states. However, others argue that the Electoral College protects small states such as Rhode Island, Vermont, and New Hampshire, and even geographically large states with small populations, like Alaska, Wyoming, and the Dakotas. That's because a candidate can't completely ignore small states, because in a close election, every electoral vote counts. There are certain states that have a long history of voting for a particular party. These are known as safe states. For the past 4 election cycles, in 1996, 2000, 2004, and 2008, Democrats could count on states like Oregon, Maryland, Michigan, and Massachusetts, whereas the Republicans could count on states like Mississippi, Alabama, Kansas, and Idaho. States that are teetering between parties are called swing states. In the past 4 election cycles, Ohio and Florida have been swing states, twice providing electoral votes for a Democratic candidate and twice providing electoral votes for a Republican candidate. Think about it. Do you live in a safe state? If so, is it a Democratic or Republican safe state? Do you live in a swing state? Are your neighboring states swing or safe? Is the population in your state increasing or decreasing? And do not forget, when you're watching the electoral returns on election night every 4 years and the big map of the United States is on the screen, know that the magic number is 270 and start adding.
All right, so again, the goal of watching that video was so that we can get smarter about what the Electoral College is and what it means. I have been voting since I was 18, so I'm 28, so that was 10 years. And 10 years, right? Like, I've been voting for 10 years, and I don't necessarily still feel like I totally understand what the Electoral College is or what it does or how it impacts me. So when I say that we're getting smarter together, I mean it. I'm learning from this too. Yeah, 10 years, Brian. I'm old. I'm old now. I'm creeping up on 30, but that's okay. It's better to get older than to not age, because then you would be dead. So, all right. So I want to mention something that was brought up in the video, and this was that the Electoral College is written into our Constitution. Okay. And here's what it says. So the Electoral College, listen, you're making a bunch of noise. The Electoral College was designated in Article 2, Section 1, Clauses 2 and 3. So it's like kind of confusing. But basically what it says is Article 2 is about the, I think Article 2 is about the legislative process, but I don't remember. So I'll have to look that up. But Clause 2 states, each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislator thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding an office of trust or profit under the U.S. shall be appointed an elector. That was a very long run-on sentence. Clause 3 says, the Congress may determine the time of choosing the electors and the day on which they shall give their votes, which day shall be the same throughout the United States. So in all of those words here, we were just told that we are going to have an electoral college. Everyone votes on the same day, right? It doesn't really explain very much about what the electoral college is supposed to do, just that we have one. So before we get started in my demo, I have a question for you guys I'd like you to answer. I want you to tell me, according to the video, why might people want the Electoral College and why might people be opposed to the Electoral College? So there's two questions there. Why might people want it? Why might people be against it?
Miss,
Sir?
so I was on a video, but I had to mute it because my mom was telling me something that's very highly important. So I didn't quite listen to the whole thing.
That's okay. I appreciate you letting me know and being honest, and I'll make sure that we share these answers so that you can still get them.
Okay.
Thanks, Tommy, and thank you, Dantes. Okay, I only have 6 students responding, so I need to see about 12 more, please, unless you and I have already talked. I am seeing some fantastic answers here. So I'm going to give you guys 1 more minute to type your thinking because I'm seeing some really great ideas. All right, I'm going to share some of these responses and kind of talk through them a little bit. So the Electoral College can protect the smaller states by giving the rights of the minority, but it can also hurt the smaller states because they can be less valued because they only have 2 or 3 electoral votes. Someone else said they might want it because it's way easier to understand the process of the election, but they might not want it because it might seem unfair to people when whoever they voted for didn't win. Some people feel like it would be more fair that states that have more people in them should have more influence in the election. But other people feel like it's not fair that states with less population have no effect on the elections. People who live in states with low populations feel they may be unheard and unrepresented. This can cause people to not want to participate. Like, wow, that's such a thoughtful response. And then somebody else said, I think that people would want the Electoral College vote because if you win the popular vote, that does not win the presidential spot. And that's super important because we know when Trump went against Hillary, Hillary had the popular vote, but as we know, she did not become our president. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And this is probably going to be the most important thing I do in class today, and this is going to be the mini lesson. And I'm going to demo for you my thinking, okay? So we're going to use the learning we just did on the Electoral College to dive into the constitutional principles in real life. My goal as your demo is to answer the following questions when I'm done reading. I want to know what's going on in the world. What is the principle discussed in this article? And how is this a real life example of constitutional principles in action? And the third thing I really care about is how does this impact me, right? Like I told you guys, I don't know that much about the Electoral College, but it does impact me and I want to know how. So for my demo, I'm going to read the article, and as I'm reading, I'm going to do what good readers do. I'm going to annotate to make meaning. I'm going to identify and explain key words. I'm going to provide evidence from the text. I'm going to connect the text with my background knowledge. I'm going to make inferences to write lasting understanding, and I'm going to answer the questions provided. These are all things we do every time we read. I just listed it, okay? So I'm going to change my presentation sharing, and I'm going to make this a whole group, whole screen. So like I said, I'm going to demo. I need you guys to be following along with my thinking, and I want you to be checking for me for what's on the Pear Deck. Am I annotating? Am I identifying and explaining? Am I providing evidence? And so on and so on and so on. Are there any questions about your expectations when I demo? Okay, Daniela, you are the only one that responded, so that is making me think you're the only one that's listening. I hope other people were listening. Angela was listening. Tommy was listening. Brian was listening. Ivan, thank you for listening. Thank you, Armando. Anybody else? Okay, Samir, thank you. Mia, thank you. Thank you, Damien. Okay, I just want to make sure that we had the same understanding of what you're looking for as I demo, because after I demo, you guys know it's your turn to do it. This might be a little bit of a long demo, but we have a break right afterwards. So stay with me. Like I said, this is really important that you follow along with my thinking, and I'm going to present now. Okay, so we're working in day 15, constitutional principles. And I'm going to keep my Pear Deck presentation open over here so I remember what I'm looking for. And so we're doing example 1. And as we're doing this, guys, I want you to watch. You will have time to type later, okay? So I just want you to watch. So for the Electoral College reading, I provided an article link about Colorado. And the title says, Electoral College Reform. Colorado is the latest state to approve the idea. And this was written November 18th, 2020. So pretty much just a month ago, less than a month. I'm going to start by reading. And as I read, if anything important comes up to me, I'm going to make some comments on the side. Debates over the effectiveness of the United States Electoral College have been happening for 200 years. Abolishing the Electoral College has become a popular topic in recent years, but would require a constitutional amendment. Abolish means to get rid of. I know that. So what this is saying is that if people were to get rid of the Electoral College, they would need to make an amendment. Like I told you guys earlier, using my background knowledge, it is a long process to change an amendment. So I'm just going to keep that in mind. Some reformers, however, are proposing to use the Electoral College itself. That's the goal of the Multi-State National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, NPVIC. All right, question one, how does the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact work? So I know this section is going to tell me about how this whole thing works. Under the current system, the presidential candidate who wins the most popular votes within a state is typically awarded all of that state's electoral votes. But states are allowed to award their electoral votes using whatever system they enact into law. This is interesting. Whatever system a state enacts. So states are allowed to give electoral votes based on state law. That's interesting. Under the NPVIC, a state would hold off on giving its electoral votes to the popular winner of the state and instead award those votes to the popular winner of the entire country. And to avoid strange outcomes, states joining the NPVIC only begin awarding votes this way when a threshold of states representing 270 electoral college votes has passed it. Okay, so then the NPVIC can't even happen until 270 electoral college voters approve. Okay, so again, that's like a majority rule. It's a concept that's beginning to draw support. The NPVIC legislation has already been passed in 15 states, and the District of Columbia, representing 196 electoral college votes. So 196 electoral college voters out of 270. I'm just going to underline that. That's pretty interesting. So they're over halfway there. According to the National Popular Vote, the organization that wrote the model legislation for the NPVIC and advocates for its passage in state houses. In the November elections, Colorado voters rejected a ballot measure to overturn that bill. So what that means is Colorado voters said yes to this. So CO voters said yes to the popular vote. NPVIC is a really elegant way of working within the current system of the Electoral College to still achieve a national popular vote, said Emily Sirota, the co-prime sponsor of the legislation in the Colorado House of Representatives. I'm just going to pause here really quick and look again at what I'm looking for. Am I making meaning? Yes. Have I identified and explained words? Yes. Have I provided evidence? Not yet. Am I connecting the text with my background knowledge? Yes. Am I making inferences yet? Not yet. Okay, so I'm on the right track. I'm going to keep going. What is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact meant to fix? Critics of the Electoral College say it is an antiquated system. Antiquated is like antique, and we know that antiques are super old. Okay? And forces campaigns to compete in only a select number of swing states. Data collected by the National Popular Vote shows 96% of the major party presidential campaign events from August 28th to November 3rd were in only 12 states. So what this means is that most presidential candidates aren't going to all the states. So the presidential there we go. Candidates are only seeing 12 of 50 states. So that makes me think that only those 12 states really matter. Additionally, they say the Electoral College makes it possible for a president to be elected despite more people voting for his or her opponent. This has happened 5 times, most recently in 2000 and 2016. So that happened with Al Gore and George Bush, and it happened with Trump and Hillary Clinton. But Don Wilson, mayor of Monument, Colorado, and co-sponsor of the state's referendum. So referendum is like a change. So the states change, or like a new idea. Did you guys hear my cat make that noise? That was weird. So a co-sponsor of the state's referendum against NPVIC says a national popular vote would leave Coloradans behind as campaigns focus on big population centers to get the most votes at a limited campaign cash. Larger cities and states don't always understand the perspective of smaller locals, says Mr. Wilson. So it's important that each state maintains that sovereignty and that state voice on who is going to be in charge of our nation. This whole paragraph sounds important to me, but I don't know why yet, so I'm just going to highlight it so I can come back to it later. In recent years, however, as Colorado has voted more consistently Democratic and therefore become less attractive to national campaigns, the NPVIC would help ensure Colorado votes and interest remained relevant, says Mrs. Sirota, who is a Democrat. So this is making me think here, because they listed that she's a Democrat, this is making me think that Democrats want to change the Electoral College process. That's what that's making me think. I don't know if it's true or not yet. I'm going to keep going. Republicans in Colorado haven't had a vote count for president for quite some time at this point due to Democratic wins in the state, she says. A system based on the national popular vote would ensure that votes by all Coloradans matter. So this here also is making me think of what we talked about. Darn it. It's making me think of what we talked about earlier, where we said the rights of the minority. So I'm just going to make a note that I think about this. My Atlanta. We're struggling here. All right, almost done. Is the national popular vote interstate compact likely to come into effect, or is it going to happen? That may depend on how often the presidency changes hands. John Koza, a chairman of National Popular Vote, says that typically whichever political party doesn't hold the White House is more responsive to reforming the Electoral College. For instance, when the organization started pushing the legislation in 2006, Republican state legislators were hard to get on board, but then started warming to the idea during the Obama presidency. That oscillation means change. If I didn't know that, I would Google it. So that change means that while target states change depending on who is president and which party controls which state houses, there are always a couple states whose legislators will be interested in the idea, said Mr. Kaza. Still, getting Republicans on board going forward could get harder, as the country's current urban-rural divide has given Republicans an electoral college advantage. Democrats increasingly need to win the popular vote by larger margins to secure a majority in the Electoral College. So I'm just going to make a note here that this could be a divide. All right, so I read it, I annotated it, I took some notes in the corners. Now I'm going to use these notes to help me answer these 3 questions. So what's going on in the world? So I know this is about Colorado. So in Colorado, there was a ballot measure that Coloradans could vote on if they wanted to keep the national popular vote or not. Okay, that's what's happening in Colorado. I'm going to bring it big picture now. There have already been 196. Let me make sure that number is right. I underlined it. 196 electoral voters out of 270 needed who agree. Okay. Next question. What is the principle discussed in this article, and how is this a real life example of constitutional principles in action? This is where I'm going to use the work we did yesterday. And I'm going to click on D14 and our constitutional principles. So with you guys, I worked on popular sovereignty. So this is the only one I have. But it says the power is with the people through the Constitution as the rule of law for the country. The government exists and works through the consent given to the government from the people. So again, it's the people voting. This article was about people voting. And so I'm going to say that this is popular sovereignty. And then the next question said, how is this a real life example of constitutional principles in action? Okay, this is a real life example because voters across America have the opportunity to vote on how the Electoral College will be utilized. This may need an amendment change, which is a big deal. Okay, how does this impact me as a person? Why does this matter? Okay, I need to know, how does this vote impact me? And I voted on this, so then why did I do it? Okay, this impacts me because this ballot measure determines how well my voice and vote count for the president as someone who lives in Colorado. Okay, so just really thinking about why this matters to me overall. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and what I want you guys to do right now, is think about what I did on a bigger picture, right? Think about what I did and what is the process I took to make meaning of this text. So if you guys are looking in Pear Deck, okay, if you're looking in Pear Deck, I've got a question for you to answer. What is the process I just took to make meaning of this text? Or in other words, explain the thinking I did based on what you saw me do, okay? So take 3 minutes to think about the process that I just went through. I have 11 people that still need to get some thinking down. The 8 of you that have already done that are crushing it. So again, think about what steps did I do to make meaning? What were some things that I did to make this article make sense to me? All right, I would like everyone to unmute and say one thing that you saw me do. We're gonna start with Brian. Brian, you're gonna start us off. What is one thing I did to make meaning?
First, you just so if you're reading through one specific text, like paragraph or whatever, whatever you did understand, you like commented on it to like give yourself a reminder when you went back to it. So kind of a brief of whatever comment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Who's next? What was the next thing I did? Or what was something else you saw me do?
You highlighted important pieces of the text.
I did. What else? What else? Somebody else tell me what I did.
For the words that you didn't understand, you would break them down to a better understanding.
Yep. And if I didn't know what those words were, I would have Googled them straight up because I don't have a dictionary at my house. What else? What else did I do? Let's look at what some of the responses are on Pear Deck. So I made a summary of each part of the notes. I used them later to help answer my questions. I highlighted things I didn't understand or recognize. I took notes. I put things in my own words. I connected my background knowledge so that I had answers to the questions. Mental note on what to annotate. Pulling evidence and highlighting keywords. Pulling evidence and highlighting keywords. Connecting my reading with yesterday's learning, yep. Evidence and background knowledge. Breaking things down. I asked myself questions, yes. I wrote comments, I annotated, I Googled. I could Google, I didn't Google, but I definitely could. Exactly, okay? So we're gonna pause because I told you guys we'd take a break right after our demo. So we're gonna pause, we're gonna take our break. Let's just do this, we'll make it 8 minutes, okay? So let's come back from break. Armando, I'll answer that question a little bit later. Let's come back from break at 2:15, okay? So break until 2:15. I'll see you guys then.